of whatever you need for your moment, to everyone who knows everyone who is being impacted in all the ways for all the reasons. And will continue to be throughout the year and in the next 10 days. And it is what it is. I hope that your holidays at least were safe and supportive, and that the dark phase of winter is treating you gently if you're a seasonal affect person. And Elliot said April was the cruelest month. I'm like, I think January is a pretty close second, but we'll do our best here. As most of you know, my name is Kent Latham. I am the curator for the Monterey Bay Poetry Consortium. We represent local affiliated authors from around the Monterey Bay area here, from Big Sur to Santa Cruz to the Salinas Valley and beyond. That affiliation is as rich and wide and embracing as I can hopefully make it here as we move forward. Have some folks in our lineup later on in the year who served at Fort Ord, and that's they're not local, but that's the connection, or people who had ancestors that grew up here, and so that idea of what makes someone's voice part of the community, part of the family, is something I really seek to continue diversifying, as at this platform. So tonight's going to be really exciting in that vein. But yeah, we are the oldest continuously running literary series now for over 31 years. And we carry on the tradition of our founder, John Lowy, who established this group as a chapter of the National Writers Union. We are always extremely grateful to our venue host, Pacific Grove Public Library, and to our gracious kind of host and sponsor, librarian Katrina Coyle, who's back there. She has helped us run this through the sponsorship and support of the Whitney Latham Lesich Poetry Trust, which allows us to offer generous stipends to our readers. And anyone in the poetry world knows that doesn't happen very often in very many places. So we're very grateful to that. We also need to acknowledge our living and ongoing debt to the people of the Room-Sinolone tribe, on whose living and non-ceded land here on the peninsula these readings in our daily lives occur. They are the rightful residents and true stewards of this portion of the Monterey Bay area. They are here among us every single day, neither dead nor forgotten. So, please never let land acknowledgements be one of those things like, oh yes, remember those people who once existed. No. Be nice to your neighbors. Support your community. And finally, in terms of gratitude, thank you for being here yourselves. As you know, the returning folks know this is a regular monthly series every second Saturday, 5:30. It's always free, it's always open to the public, and we would love to have you come back again and join us again. If you want even more poetry kind of affiliated with this series, we still have on our YouTube channel 39 months of Zoom readings from our pandemic era. That's simply called the Monterey Bay Poetry Consortium on YouTube. Check it out. We have a Facebook page for as much longer as we can continue to support and tolerate that person. We may have a Blue Sky page. Who knows? We'll find out. Again, feel free to befriend us and follow us and support those connections. But tonight we have, it's always a special treat. Tonight feels like an extra special treat because we not only have one more poet than normal, we usually have feature two, tonight we have three folks, but we have a powerful unifying theme kind of that the reading was built on. So that's two, extra wins really, three poets in a theme. And it's one of the readings I've been looking forward to the most, and I'm really excited to begin our 2025 season with this event and these authors. So this evening, we will be spotlighting and celebrating the work and words of poets Jason Santiago LaCour, Elbina Rafizadeh, and Jean Vengua. And we will be collectively honoring the tragedy of the 1930 Watsonville riots, the memory of Fermin Tobera, and the legacy of the Manong generation of Filipino farm workers and field workers right here along the Central Coast, Pajaro Valley, Central Valley, who don't get recognized and remembered nearly enough for the major contributions. And our guest authors will provide a lot more detail kind of in context about that theme and their kind of voices or affiliations, or kind of like the umbrella over which that represents here. But it seems unavoidable to do anything involving the remembering and preserving of a people's history, especially an oppressed people's history in a nation and a continent that has never been as white as its exploiters want to pretend, without feeling the ongoing shadow of that racism and colonization all too alive and well today. Before the fires took over the headlines, kind of a full week ago, it seemed like, as we passed to January 6th, all the headlines kept saying how the wannabe dictator was rewriting history by turning January 6th into whatever he wants it to be, even though it was an attempted coup by domestic terrorists. And while it's true that anyone with access to language and the media and power can rewrite history, what that really means is they wanted to erase history. And the difference between how many stories can be told, or as many people as there are to tell them, and who choose to share them and choose to enhance them. But the erasing of history, I think everyone can probably agree, is a lot more insidious and a lot more dangerous, because if you don't have access to a story, then you can't choose to support or reject it. If the story is simply taken away, that's when history ceases to be a foundation that we can build on and learn from. And that's what was attempted upon Fermin Tobera in 1930, but we still know his name, and we still remember, we can still remember his legacy. That's what was attempted on the entire Manong generation when it was replaced by the Bracero program in 1942. That's what was attempted by every piece of anti-Asian federal legislation, from the Naturalization Act of 1870 through to the creation by Roosevelt of 26 temporary and permanent concentration camps in World War II. And yet, for every attempt at erasure, the truth remains. Quote, this is all from Wikipedia. Filipinos are the oldest non-indigenous Asian ethnic group in the Americas. Filipino sailors are documented as landing in Monterey Bay in October of 1587. 1587. The first permanent settlement of Filipinos in North America was in Louisiana in 1763. Those settlers were called Manila men, and they served in the Battle of New Orleans during the War of 1812, supporting the Americans against the British Empire. The 1898 Philippine Revolution against Spain was inspired by the American Revolution, so this idea of we are a community in both directions from the beginning of kind of this recognition of North American history, and the idea that that's people would say, oh well, no, these people aren't really as much as these people, or this hasn't been as long as that, is completely not true. Without Filipino Americans, we wouldn't be able to celebrate musicians like Bruno Mars, Enrique Iglesias, artists like Carlos Villa, and Linda Berry, athletes like Vicky Draves and Dave Bautista, labor leaders like Larry Iliong and Dorothy and Fred Cordova, poets like Don Mabalone, Nick Carbo, Rick Barrett, who was actually my thesis advisor, and Amy Nizuka Matatu. But tonight we have three poets in our midst, so enough of me, let's get to them. As per our series tradition, I will introduce each poet individually, briefly beforehand, and we always go in order alphabetically by last name, so that's why they'll be in the order they are tonight. You are enthusiastically encouraged to linger afterward to charitably patronize the authors who brought books. We are diplomatically not saying that anything will be sold. There's some city ordinance that we're linguistically working around here. Please do not purchase anything. Please feel free to compensate a charitable few dollars toward the books that you may or may not be able to walk away with. You get the idea. And if anybody needs a bathroom at any point, right around to your right, around the corner there, there's juice and water and cookies and munchies and sweet things over on the table behind you. Please enjoy yourself. And so without further ado, please make sure your phones are discreet and quiet. Make sure your ears and hearts are open, and look forward to a wonderful reading here. All right, our first author, Jason Santiago LaCour, Jason, is a Filipino and French Creole spoken word poet and hip hop artist from the Midwest. Whereabouts in the Midwest? I didn't ask.
I'll tell you.
Okay, we'll hear it. We'll find out. Currently living in Santa Cruz, just up the bay. You can find him most weekends at Sacred Mud Henna and Tattoo Studio at the Tannery Arts Center, offering workshops, coaching, and henna jagua hand art by appointment. book now? What's the wait list about? Like weeks, months, days?
Yeah.
Get excited. So it is his first time, Jason's first time reading as part of this series. So we're really excited to, I think actually probably all three of you for at least recent history. So welcome Jason to the microphone. Once you're on, just click the little thing and it'll turn green.
Test. Wow. Nice. Thank you for that amazing intro, Kent. A round of applause for this beautiful space and organization, please. I can honestly say it's the first time I've ever heard the word consortium. Thank you. Welcome to the jungle, earths and the suns too. Take a walk, it's too beautiful to run through. I'm your tour guide and your bodyguard, call me Jay. I study Kung Fu, Art of War, Sun Tzu, easy like 1, 2. I really want you to get up in the rhythm with me, one, brew a blunt. Ooh, I'd rather mango and tango with lime in it, stick a rhyme in it, feeling good in 5 minutes. Anything you might witness is yours and my business. If this is a visit, just pay attention till I'm finished. See the life with us, let the light heal us, and trust me, cause the bugs just might kill us in the jungle. Yeah, in the Jungle, in the jungle. Yeah, in the Jungle. It's an endless abyss of concrete, broken glass and steel, real green with greed. Streets are like tributaries to various interstate-like waterways, the banks of which are the cracked sidewalks that flourish with life on a whole new level. Vibration. So subtle. By the time you feel it, yeah, you know it's trouble. Trees are evenly dispersed amongst the natives for the purpose of self-maintenance. Some of us find shelter in these leaves and grow too comfortable to leave, so those leaves are then melted and molded into trinkets and trademarks for brave hearts with the rite of passage, like puff puff passage, only papyrus, no plastic. The overgrowth is drastic. Indigenous tribes are damn near extinct. Think, so-called jungle fever, dark and light blending into shadows, covering the pursuit of our roots. The mating call is hidden proof. Languages hang long and loose from family tree branches, fed by fantasies, captured and capped off with shots of Patron, clapped off till I got you alone off with that cloth. Nothing that soft should be so wrong. The jungle. There's an order to it all. From its burros and elephants to its guerrilla warfare politics. How volatile a mix of ecosystems, bumping victims, pumping fists and jumping block to block, mocking the back and forth, rocking of chameleons. Really, son, do not come here unless you're from here. See, I left the jungle, but it never left me. And when none of the other lands would accept me, this place blessed me with sanctuary. So now I find peace in the pulse of the hustle. And if there's beef, my peeps on the double follow my war cry. Brat, war paint, tatted and scarred with reminders of the price of life here. Survive your first 25 here, and you're suddenly humbled by the madness and majesty, the sadness and tragedy of this breakneck, economical, tropical ecstasy. Walk the path of light. It grows like right next to me. And together we will learn to rise above the canopy and the anarchy and the insanity of a beautiful place that we call home. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Maraming salamat. Arigato gozaimasu. Asante sana. Ngoy sheshe shukran shukriya taupun kamun okun chiran. Obrigado taktanka jakuyu spasiba. Betama meseged nadlun kamsamnida. Mahalo. Mesion pil. Dziękuję ci. Grazie mille. Toda la barra. Merci. I'm from the Midwest. Chi-town. Top to bottom. Summer in the city born, island-blooded believer in love heals. I feel most folks and say hi almost unconditionally. Spiritually, I know just enough to keep searching. Admittedly, tight-eyed often, I see everything I can, limited though by so-called manly, lonely, and holiness. I am so-called blessed to have experienced and survived a broken marriage and parenthood. By the way, patriarchy puts fathers farther. You know, for the life of me, I can't find a receipt for that soul I sold. Yo, you can buy Psychoses wholesale. There's an app. Like, share, subscribe, you get a new issue every month. See, we are in recovery, Earth's rediscovery. Uncovering new corners of this planet daily, manifesting renewed purpose/service. If worth is measured by our truth, I'm not suicidal anymore, but I've worn that hat and I know now something ain't right. I walk down the levee and something ain't right. Santa Cruz is a paradox of a paradise. Inferno fertilized, I inherited property in purgatory. My story spans miles and miles of God, I hate it here, where justice just lies flat, where long walks in the sun, cold suck and stretch each sudoriferous gland to its limit, where living your best life is a criminal offense to a long line of tourists turned colonizer, aka KKK, settled in our ways. Once was, it's like sweet water for sacred elders. But at 46 in 2024, I am no longer subject to gravity. Having lived, worked, and struggled in at least 7 major cities, never before have I been so exposed to homelessness, mental illness, and substance abuse. New to this planet, I'm shocked how hot the block is. I mean, I'm just a domestic abuse-enabled latchkey grandma's boy who toys with words and blazes, bumping J Dilla daily. I mean, I'm just a coyote, smuggling dreams, yipping at the moon for dancing perched in a poem from afar for a spell, and I gotta tell y'all, something ain't right. My black and brown folk all beaten till broken and tokenized, eyes wide shut in such close proximity to our evolution. Look but don't touch, look close and you won't want. I mean, really, what will it take to make you make a difference? No more ashtray change to sedate your traffic light humanitarianism? No more shaking your head at another zombie on a stolen bike. No more sidewalk tents or tense exchanges with the loved one lost turned Nosferatu. Cops too polite, too uptight, want to fight. The night is daughter dragon and melted mascara throwing up entitlement all in their highlights. Life under these bridges echoes a stagnant smell. Dim lights smile defensively with extensive knowledge of the new hard times trying to halt the river from rising above our empty expectations. California is lactating, nursing its 170-year-old infant soy formula and chamomile. But really, I like it here. Like a satellite that fell into an unknown perfectly sized ocean. 93 till infinity stones stacked like chakras. I'm still twisters and thunderstorms at heart. I'm still sharp winter winds and slang spit fam. Damn, Joe, but yo, I love it here. Like listening. My partner and I glistening through the trees at each other, just wondering where the rainbow went. Yeah, thank y'all so very much. And thank you to Fermin Tobera, like Manongs, you know, like my family immigrated from the Philippines here, starting with my grandmother, my abuela, you know, and my mother grew up in Chicago from 14, really having to assimilate to survive. I wasn't taught to speak Chabacano or Tagalog, so now I'm learning on my own in efforts to honor that lineage. And I look in here and I see so much diversity, and I thank you all for being here and for surviving, fam, for getting up every day and dealing with what you deal with and making a conscious contribution. So thank you. One more poem and then I'm so excited. This one I'm gonna dedicate actually to to my folks, my mother's family, who came here and made it possible for me to be a poet. How about that? Heart. By far one of my favorite words, perhaps fourth after dope and poet and love, a profane 5 letters. Just the right amount of vowels wrapped in consonants and squeezed into a single sound, a single syllable diphthong, maybe mono. My southern twang sings it as a single sound. Heart. A 1-inch punch trigger break, beautiful suppressed shot that fires quickly, escalating from whisper to wail, stopping short with meaning. Exhale. Its ancient origin in the diaphragm. When you tell the tale of the timekeeper, you must pace yourself, lest the tiny spaces between life and death clog and crowd, making it hard to bleed. Blood clots in the brain, clap, thunder, lightning strikes, and life's most familiar streets across the sky are strange. Scorched clouds of memory become perfect places to dance. The heart dances. Isang paru-paru. La mariposa. My Lola visits me as a hummingbird, with instructions she concocted caring for my grandfather post-op quadruple bypass. I laugh as she calls him utu utu. She says, the heart is strong when you are young, Anna. And I agree that it is also full of air and far more likely to implode. I have learned that as a people, we birth carbon copies of our hearts and call them children. Paper mache, origami godlings. We shape them in our image and fill them with flowers and sage. I pray she creates her own cracks to fix forever. For when we die, their hearts will become re-animated canopic jars, jewel-encrusted creatures to be handled with care. To be open is to be shattered. Our hearts are fractured, compound, like words, like mine started out as just he, until she gave me art, completing the puzzle of perpetual struggle, protecting this dark crystal matrix arc reactor behind our solar plexus. Nothing is better medicine than to listen to it. Hear this. The heart is where the hurt heads when it's ready to receive healing. Be still my beat. I have a QR code later here this evening. I'm sorry I didn't bring any of my printed self-published books because I sold them all. That was awesome. But the QR code actually is a link to like ebooks and music and audio performances and whatnot. So thank you all so much for being here. Please, I encourage you, write something every day that you are not legally required to.
We, as responsible Central Coasters, we don't have very many fireworks around here anymore, which is good for safety. But for those of you who missed fireworks on New Year's Eve, how's this for starting off the year? Like, does it? Do the linguistic fireworks get better than that? Because, like, I love the slow, soft poetry, but we don't get enough stand-up spoken word, hip-hop slam. Like, we don't get enough energy, just sheer beautiful energy. So thank you for bringing that to the year. You never heard Consortium said, I'd never heard Tung Fu, but it works. Languages hang long and loose from family tree branches. Like, oh yeah, no language came pure out of someone's mind, and into a book and into the world. They all evolved and followed their peoples around and through and in between, right? And so that idea of, here's your tree and here's your tree, and who doesn't want fruit salad now, like, right? Love it. Spiritually, I know just enough to keep searching. Yeah. Paradox of Paradise, Coyotes Smuggling Dreams. And just that question, what will it take to make you make a difference? You know, hopefully this is what it takes, you know. Our three poets in the front row, hopefully this makes us make a difference tonight, tomorrow, this year, always. So, thank you. All right, it gets better. We have two more poets still. Next up, and she has books. Elbina Batala Rafizadeh, who really spearheaded this evening's event, kind of reached out to the poets and brought us all together, is a Filipina immigrant and retired public health nurse from Santa Cruz. She worked in Watsonville and Pajaro Valley before transitioning to teaching and research in academia. She's active in Santa Cruz, around the Bay. I mean, you're a Monterey Bay member, but especially active in Santa Cruz, representing the writers of color of Santa Cruz County as a host at Satori Arts, a performance arts, poetry, and spoken word venue. Elbina is published in many local anthologies, JournalX, Gulch Review, phrenz. Is it phrenz or phrenzy? It's like, I want it to be both, right?
I think it's phrenz.
Phrenz. It's like friends, but it's like a frenzy of friends.
Right.
I don't know.
Anyway, friends. Besides new poetry about the Filipino Manongs tonight, she will also be reading from the anthology that she co-edited, available over here, Portable Peace Protest from Iraq to Palestine, and from her first collection of poetry, Keepers of the Malicgong Rice Terraces. Please welcome Elbina. Once you're clipped in, just flip the little thing, it'll turn green.
Okay. Hello. So clip right here. So nice to see all your faces. Hi, Rana. Okay. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for coming. I'm so honored to come here and grateful to Kent for accepting my suggestion to have a reading about the Filipino Manongs. It's kind of been a special, ever since I found out about Fermin Tobera, and I found out late, I think just about 2 years ago when I was doing work on Larry Itliong. And as a result, I ended up writing a poem, and that's when I first came upon writers of color, and then one thing led to another. So this moment is really special for me, and it's happening in Monterey Bay. So the first poem that I wrote, and I thought about it, oh gosh, decades ago when I was looking for a place to live, and because I worked in Pajaro, if anybody knows about Murphy's Crossing, a long time ago, before all those big houses went up, it was just a hill with older homes. And it was within my price range, and I measured it out. It was 30 minutes to Salinas and 30 minutes to Santa Cruz, where a lot of my friends lived. And there was this house on top of a hill, and I loved the view, but it was about a 2-acre lot, but it required a lot of work, and I was single with a little son, and I really was motivated to buy it. I was trying to figure out how to do it. And this is a poem that came around as a result that I ended up not buying it, but that was, and then as I thought about it, why was I so drawn to it? And then I found out that Fermin Tobera had died in that area. I believe in magical realism, and and I'm so connected to my past, and I really felt there's a voice here that needs to be heard. So this is the first poem of a trilogy, and this poem the 3 poems are the point of view of 3 women, one being me, another one, Fermin Tobera lived in a time where they were doing diamond dance dancing halls, and you pay 10 cents, and that kind of helped to trigger the riots towards the Filipinos. And so he was the one who died with a shot. It was January 30th is his memorial anniversary, 1930. And so I like to think that the second poem is that he might have met someone through one of those dances, and he met a woman he was in kinship with. So it's going to be her point of view. And the last one is the point of view of his mother when she received his body in Manila. So the first one is Murphy's Crossing, and this is my point of view. Many summers ago, I stood on the hill above Murphy's Crossing. The cooling breeze, the valley view, I found my future home. This land with a house that needs fixing isn't right for you and your son. He's only 9, my father said. Where would he play with no kids his age around? My mother asked. Why would you live in this old house on a hill far away from everything? My friend asked. I don't know. There is something here. Now, decades later, I am living elsewhere. And then I read about Fermin Tobera. In 1930, he was killed by gunshots into his bunkhouse at Ribero's ranch by men who hated the Filipinos who came to work in the farms of Watsonville. A vivid memory, me standing on that hill at Murphy's Crossing 60 years after Fermin's murder, where he may have also gazed upon the fertile land. Was he pleading in the silence of the breeze, asking for his voice to be heard? Now I know, I cry for Fermin, who died so young. I cry for the Manongs, who were beaten by men who hated them. I cry, now I know. So Fermin was 22 years old when he died, and around the same time, so I'm going a little bit off track to give context, and this, I also wrote about a Persian woman. I'm not going to read the poem, but her name was Masa Amini, and she died because of the way she wore her scarf. It was worldwide. I won't go into all the details, but I thought she was 22 and he was 22, and they both died unjustly. I had to say that, because I had written this about the same time, and just like I said, I believe in magical realism, and I just feel there's just something there. Okay, back on track. Okay, this is about possibly the woman that he might have met during one of the dances. It's called Still Horizon Before the Raid. She was struck by his smiling eyes when he came up to her at the taxi dance in Watsonville. His smile melted her fear, so she took his hand, noticing his brown skin on her white fingers. He wore slick, tight pants and iron shirt, his hair combed back with some kind of oil. She felt his rough fingers from bare hands that picked and harvested vegetables from dawn until dusk. When they talked, he told her about his village in Ilocos Norte where his mother and father lived. Excuse me. Where his father once owned land that they farmed that he had to surrender to the Americans after the Spanish-American War. How he had questioned his father. Why do I have to go to America, the country that took your farm, and now we are penniless? Because there is nothing left, his father explained. America will have work for you, so you can live, have a family. She asked, do you want to go back? He looked out to the horizon and said, someday, yes. His face became sad. She touched his chest and felt his heart beating, where a bullet will kill him during a night raid against the Filipinos. They sat in silence, an eternity when time has no thoughts about tomorrow, when the moonlight cascades on the still horizon except for the owl calling from somewhere unseen. This eternity where parents did not know that their daughters go to the dance halls in Watsonville because they will get paid 10 cents a dance. This eternity when she met Fermin, a soft-spoken Filipino man who happened to be a farm worker who liked to dance and who held her hand and shared his heart and longing to see his parents again. This eternity that does not recognize that time is moving forward and only sees the soul of the other and neglects to warn about tomorrow. She did not know that Fermin will die at the hands of her father's friends with guns that will shoot into the bunkhouse where Fermin was sleeping. She did not know that years later she will remember this night with sadness because Fermin will return home to his parents, but not like the eternity's dream of the moonlit night when she touched his chest where the fateful bullet also finds Fermin's heart. And the final poem of this series, this trilogy, is from the mother's point of view. A mother's cry. Her scream filled the dense, heavy, humid air where many gathered to witness Fermin's coffin return to Manila for his funeral. A mother's cry, a son killed in a country across the ocean by a bullet into his heart during a night raid against the Filipinos who worked in the fields of Watsonville. His mother falls against her husband when the coffin touches Philippine land, where he left only 2 years earlier to search for a better opportunity in the vast land of America. They both fall to the ground, unable to hold the burden of fresh grief that weighs on their minds and hearts because this was not how it was supposed to be. She cannot see, she cannot hear, she cannot breathe, her chest growing tighter and tighter because no longer will she see her son's face, the smile of greeting, the kiss on her cheek. No longer will he hold her when she is weary or tell her how much he loves her adobo because she is the only one who knows how to cook with just the right soy and vinegar. No longer will he have to wake up at dawn and work until dusk with bare hands and few breaks for his aching back or go to the toilet in the rain, heat, or cold. No longer will he have to worry about his mother and father because he is somewhere near them in a place they cannot see or hear. No longer will he have to see the hateful faces or listen to hurtful words from men and women whose skin are lighter than his because he did not belong in a country that was promised to be vast with opportunity. No more pain, no more, no longer, no more pain. He is now safe. May Fermin Tobera now rest in peace. So I wrote another poem about the fields, and this one is more current. So there was a photograph at the Museum of Art and History photograph show of the Manongs in Watsonville. It's called Sowing the Seeds. And I was at a Secular de Poeta that some of you might know. Which you have taught at, I know. We were challenged to write a poem about one of the photos, and there was a little boy, probably 2 or 3 years old, playing nearby where his father was working in the fields, and it's called Strawberry Fields. It really struck me because it was like, what's this little boy doing playing in the fields? Why isn't he home? So, back then they didn't have babysitters, it was wherever you were, and his mother was probably working somewhere, and the father was in the fields, and so the kids were there playing. It was so interesting because the kids looked so happy. they had no, they didn't know about being poor or, what their parents did. I was just really struck by that image. Strawberry fields. The boys, maybe 3 years old, bare feet, dusty overalls, and stained t-shirt from the adobo and rice lunch, an hour before, playing between rows of strawberry plants where their fathers pick fruit off San Andreas Road, when now should be napping, but their mothers in Watsonville dusting living room tables and cleaning toilets in the big houses off East Lake and Beach Street. The boys not yet in school playing where their fathers pick strawberries because there are no babysitters, but only the strawberry fields and afternoon sun to keep them safe while they wrestle on the dirt, their bare feet untouched except for the earth as heat rises from the core of a million years, reaching out to the little boys' growing hearts as they play in the innocence of strawberry fields. The boys, maybe 3 years old, not yet in school, held by the ocean breeze from 10 miles away, so subtle, yet cools of perspiration from their foreheads, oblivious to the land that watches over them. As their father picks the strawberries, now ripened and nourished, too, by the sun. I'm going to just read one more poem, and this is an anthology that I co-wrote with Janifa Jahan. She'll be here in March. We'll come and see her. And she has, I'd like to end with this because it's so relevant for today. It's called Morning Prayer for Gaza. And I wrote this in November when Israel retaliated, and I just knew when that retaliation happened, it was going to continue. I just knew it. And so this was inspired by a poem by Mahmoud Darwish, poem Think of Others. And I was just sitting there like, what can I write in memory of war, people at war, and what's happening in the Middle East. And it's called Morning Prayer for Gaza. Darkness, an hour before daybreak, the heaviness of my heart disturbs the quiet stillness, weeks of lingering sadness since the first bomb on the other side of the world. In the stillness of the morn as light approaches, gradually from a distant horizon. As I rise to make my tea, my pups eagerly follow me into the kitchen. Eager faces and wagging tails, a treasured innocence distant from my mind's eye that sees the bombs that are falling on the other side of the world, exploding in my brain when I close my eyes and see desolation and death, the glaring evening news of dead children and elderly alike among the rubble of fallen buildings. The kettle whistles, the water is ready for tea, so I wait and wait and wait for the tea to brew as a quiet space grows louder with the silent screams of the children who are not heard through my silent pleas because I can hear their cries. Emerging light filters through the curtain and the tea is now ready, so I pour the hot, dark liquid into a cup. The sound of pouring tea softly breaks into the silence, and I will sip the tea underneath the elm, forever constant, whose leaves rustle in cadence with the words I whisper with the wind. Our unified voices saying, I prayed for peace, I prayed for peace, I prayed for peace. Shalom, salam, peace. Thank you. This goes to Doctors Without Borders. They have been so good of offering humanitarian care. So whatever I get from this, I'm going to send to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elbina. Was it last summer or 2 summers ago that I attempted to do a kind of a little open mic workshop session at Colton Hall in Monterey. Last summer, yeah.
Last spring.
And you and Heidi McGurran were the only people who showed up, but bless you for, it was great because we got to each have, we went around about 3-4 times and shared our work and had a lovely quiet moment, an intimate reading. But without that introduction, that made this possible. So I just had that. So that's where we connected. I love the image of wanting to buy the home on the hill with its history, with its history of trauma and remembrance and celebration. That it wasn't just the one or the other. It was all of that history. As a house that needed to be remodeled and rebuilt and re-inhabited, and the house isn't here, but the book is here. The poems are here. It's like you have built that house for us to live in as well. And what an incredibly powerful thing that is. It's like we can all dwell in its rooms, and share those memories and uphold those memories. The reference to the 22-year-old Persian woman who was also killed. You're like, yeah, sure, maybe not on track for tonight's ethno-historical theme, but in that anyone in the human condition can share, relation. In the same way you're line, she met Fermin at the dance, who happened to be a farm worker. It's like, he's not a group. He's not, the farm workers, the manongs. The people, the individuals. That's what makes it. And may we all not be surprised by the sight of happy children. Like, let's make that world again. let's find more opportunities to be surprised by joy. All right. Up next to wrap us up and lift us up, Jean Vengua is a Filipina writer, American writer, poet, artist, and editor, author of Corporeal from Black Radish Books, Proud from Meritage Press, The Aching Vicinities, a chapbook from Odolith's Press, and Marcelina from Paloma Press. With the poet Mark Young, Jean co-edited the first Hainaku anthology and the first and second, both anthologies. As co-publisher of Toledo's Press with Elizabeth H. Basares, she published and edited the debut, The Making of a Filipino-American Film, by Jean Callahan and John Manuel Castro, and The Flip Side by Rod Pulido. In 2023, she edited and introduced a collection of short essays, Our Salinas Chinatown, for the Asian Cultural Experience of Salinas. Jean was born in San Francisco, raised in Santa Cruz, and now lives in Monterey. Again, very few of us are ever just from one place or one time. Her art and writing can be viewed, and this, again, as QR code, websites, newsletters, all sorts of great things. Her art and writing can be viewed at her website, jeanvengua1 at wordpress.com, and her newsletters can be read at jeanvengua.substack.com and commonwealthcafe.substack.com. So check those out if you don't remember them. They're on our flyers over on the wall and in front, and you can take photos and bring them home with you. So Jean, welcome.
I always make a ton of notes and then I never read them. So that's probably what I'm going to do today. Oh. Okay, that's working, right? Nice. Thank you. Thank you to Kent and Elbina and Jason for being here and putting on this wonderful event. I'm really honored to remember Fermin Tobera, and I'm also remembering the spirit of my friend, poet Jeff Tagami, who was also a farm worker in the Watsonville area. He died some years ago, but he's an important poet to remember in regards to the Filipino farm workers in both the Pajaro and the Salinas Valley. So I'm going to read his poem on Fermin Tobera. And you know, there's so many stories about Fermin, so many different views, and his is one of them. So, to the spirit of Jeff Tagami, thank you for being here, your presence. Tobera. My name is Fermin. I am 22, forever. I work all day. I tip a bottle of bourbon and swallow 4 times. I'm strong as hell. It wasn't always this way. Before, I was serenaded by a band that played a slow waltz, and around me danced 5 pale-skinned women whose eyes were blackened by makeup. My head swooned from the scent of perfume, and my body grew weak until the music stopped and I remembered. There was a room full of other men waiting in line for a chance to dance with these women. And I was at the end of this line. Such was the power of my desire. So I carried my desire to work with me. I carried it over my shoulder like a hoe. It was in my hoe. When I swung it, desire cut the weeds between the long rows of sugar beet, and my desire sweetened throughout the day until it grew dark, and my eyes, which were separate from my desire, could no longer see, and it was time to return to the bunkhouse and drink until my desire blurred along with seeing, and I fell asleep. Desire, not loneliness, bought the tickets to hang around my neck like a braided rope until we were a flock of men unashamed to spend a week's wage for a dance. Yes, a man gets lonely, but he has to do something to stop from going crazy. And it's not craziness when men get together to buy a '29 Model T and drive from Watsonville to Lompoc, San Pedro to Oxnard and back again, past the neatly clipped lawns of white neighborhoods where they are not wanted, in a country where they are not welcome, and to do this over and over like a man slapping his own face again and again. I'm not bitter, believe me. I've got a place I call home where I can lay my head on a clean pillow sheet. There are men I can call brother. Here is my shed, here are all my tools, my garden. If it pleases me, I can walk to the river and stand under the bridge, while above me, white families rush back and forth in their cars. I can feel their laughter against my back in the railing's vibration. I could be happy. This is how I return to my bed each night, with a smile on my face, because I know what awaits me. Listen. Here comes the buzzing of the bullet which bears my name. It's a bee looking for the hive of my neck, and I must lay still for its sweet entrance. Time moves on. My brothers grow older without me, and I become the cold breath on their necks, the blind fog in the field. I'm not spiteful, just a reminder when things are going well. This is all my desire demands now. Remember me? I'm Fermin, the young one, forever 22, whose name is forming like a dead sun, even now, on the pursed lips of my brothers, whispering, Tobera, Tobera, Tobera. So, thinking about Tobera and the Watsonville riots, I have in mind 3 violent events that happened in California. There was, of course, the murder of Tobera and the Watsonville riots. In 1933, there was also the murder of Cecilia Navarro in the Stockton area by Filipinos. And in 1934, there was a vigilante attack on the Filipino labor camp in Spreckles during the 1934 lettuce strike. So actually, I'm not going to read anything about that vigilante attack. I do have some information about it in my newsletter, The Commonwealth Cafe, at Substack. But that's also an important event to me because it was another forgotten event. Nobody ever talks about it. I learned about it because it was published, the testimonials to that event were published in the Philippines Mail, which was published out of Salinas, Chinatown. Philippines Mail is the longest running Filipino newspaper in the United States, published from the 1930s to 1984. And really quickly, what happened was that vigilantes gathered at the Green Gold Labor Camp, took out their rifles in the evening and shot it up as the farm workers ran off, escaping into the ditches. And then they torched the camp and they burned it to the ground. So that camp did not just contain male farm workers, there were also women and children living there. So there was that, but I did write a long poem about Cecile Navarro, in a book called Marcelina. It was called Marcelina. I titled it Marcelina because the newspapers which reported on it in the Central Coast could not get her name right, and they, published articles about it over and over again. So she had many names, and I'm just going to read a couple of parts from this book, which is interspersed with newspaper reports. So they sound kind of disjointed, perhaps, but anyway, so here goes. News report, Lodi, October 9th, 1933. Using fists, fire hose, and tear gas bombs, 1,500 farmers and grape growers routed and drove out of town a mob of striking grape pickers who were being harangued by strike leaders. Not just the men. She was here, smelled black earth, pear blossomings, manure and fresh hay, reads the morning paper, steam on the windows, thinks of her sisters, married, distant, wonders, what will I do today? Strip the bed, cook rice, write a letter, say thanks be to God, I'm all right. How are you all? Will I send for Tatai first, and then Nanai, then Boy, the youngest, and the children? So lonely here, so bored. The grass, it's not the same grass. The rice, not the same rice. The wind and the crops, all different. To the south, a mountain named for the devil. And the white folks don't like us. Maybe you should just stay there in the Philippines until I return, because there are rivers, bays named after the saints, the San Joaquin, San Pablo. But for now, take care of yourselves, take care. I am your daughter, your mother, your sister, grandmother, great-grandmother. Here's another section. The remains of revolutions, wars lost, a jacket stiff from disuse, insignia and tri-cornered patches swearing loyalty, secrets kept, holding together is memory, is motherland, and the KKK becomes Ku Klux Klan. Kalayaan becomes Kalaisan. Its syllables splayed like, what'd you say? The tongue split in the telling. An address packed away under the bed for something special. A dance someday. Miss May Marquez, candidate in the Queen contest, was a central figure in a huge crowd. The ritual of her presence before men. Filipinas, the sweet sour fruit of its earth. Fibers pounded to threads, woven and cut to shape sleeves, woven and pounded to a sheen, embroidered with flowers and vines, enveloping her in brown hyacinths. They believed her actions were bringing the good reputations of all Filipinos into shame and disgrace. Oración. Filipino loses leg in leaping from Southern Pacific car. Santos of desperate leaps from trains and bridges, Santos of tractor dust in asparagus fields, Santos of daily city malls and temporary employment, Santos of steerage and seasickness and hypochondria, Santos of the little rarest modernist club, readings, musicals, and socials amid strikes and stinking broccoli. Santos de Merced of the Mokelame, the Calaveras, and all the tributary saints. So, just want to say one last thing about Celine Navarro. So this was in a very difficult period, the 1930s, that the Filipinos experienced all this racism. And there were tens of thousands of Filipinos working in the fields out here in California. But there are many fewer Filipino women. And because of that, they were expected to represent and represent the prime of Filipina beauty and, so that was part of the issue for her. And I'll put this out if you want to hear more about that later. I'm going to read a few poems from my book, Corporeal. By the way, thank you to Michael Fink for designing the cover. Also, my book, Proud. Oh, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to read one poem from Proud. So, this is about belonging, or trying to belong. It's about placing myself here in California because I'm a Californian. But it's also about colonialism and trade and migration. Bombs bursting in air. No oceans to cross, native to this shore, born west of Sierra and Ridge volcanics, west of Twain, Toledo's gold mining camps, Tuolumne marshlands, Merced River, southwest of San Joaquin Delta, Terminus Island, Grand Island, Isleton, sister to Lafayette on the Teche, south and east of here, in proximity to Sunk, Barataria, Terrebonne. West, the trade returns this way. Queequeg's coffin, freighters riding low, fishing boats, trawlers, galleons, indentured servants, Manila men, and merchant seamen. Brand new slaves, occasionally mermaids. Okay, corporeal begins with a quote. Corporeal is a book that focuses on the body, and especially women's bodies. And colonialism, trade, capitalism, all of that figures into that, of course. So it begins with this quote. It's very old. The natives of the islands of Pintados, the painted people, especially the women, are very vicious and sensual. Their perverseness has discovered lascivious methods of communication between men and women. This is from Dr. Antonio de Morga, alcalde of criminal causes, in the Royal Audiencia of Nueva España and the Council for the Holy Office of the Inquisition. Let's see. This is, by the way, this is one of my more experimental books. Okay. Manifest Destiny. Something festers, nodes of light, scarlet spines, memory. Passing trauma gestures by the side of the road, waves from the flooded shore. Thought shivers, seeks metaphors, but flesh gets right to the point, clinging to its makeshift raft. Mind desires completeness. Sentence thought to the cage of speech, in the cage of writing, in the cage of print, in the cage of a pixel. Tell me, I want to penetrate you, the stories inked into your skin. You, my own you. Is fleshiness its own language? I don't know. The thumbs know, the swollen eyes and broken throats. Tell me. This poem is called From There We Set Sail. To survey and plot gender with a scope, tripod and chalk, make metaphors of valleys and hills, hot mounds, steaming crevices. Circumnavigate, anchor, fight off all marauding intruders. I seem to recall the privateer Drake left behind his brother in the bush with the friar. Well, you know what happened. Aswang repairs her wound with bone and thread. Borders grow together uneven and puckered. From there we set sail. From there, we hike out and just can't understand their objectification, but grow to love the scars, worship the virgin dynamo, the suited and hair-shirted among us. Pray God to send a messenger with stories. Remember how to touch our bodies? Can we sit with that a spell? Typing letters, he wrote and encrypted upon himself his own propensity for sublineation, that fingering beyond the keyboard. Inflames a nervous tick, the ditch we hid in, high on sacred thistles. Imagine the ad burned on an earlobe, a tattooed lip, hair woven into facts and cleverly tied knots of skins and dried intestines, not unlike these plastic cock rings and antidotes, scrub 99-cent nations. The gaps. The shape of some words run counter to everything you mean. Turn it around, shape and tug the line. Pretty leash, soft collar. The changes change you. The letters vibrate, write you, cut you. Though you be full of good intentions. Blood wants to burst out, occasionally rise. The temperature or fuel, ire, we can only hope. But some words best left unsaid. Gaps or gaffs speak between fetters. Feel it between your toes. Okay, three very short poems. The discard. Sooner or later, she's told, flesh will follow books into obscurity, replaced by our avatars. She hopes to have at least one good reader before she dies. And surf it. The minerally air, the salt chimes in muted gestures, surpass the day before and the day before that, undermining itself wetly as it will. The day's surfeit drowns its own cool sweetness. All things that arise are of the nature to pass away. My friend, so eat, breathe, shit. Let the ashes settle. Begin again. And finally, forward. The feet make themselves known, strung to ankles, knees, hips, leveraged propulsion, balance, ball of earth, uprooted toes, knuckle under. Energy equals mass, but slowly, yet faster than you can think. Where is that flashing, invisible life? Matter, wicked presence, shambles, sniffs, and wonders. Thank you.
got to start with fireworks. I got to conclude with letting ashes settle to begin again. Again, we don't plan it, we don't coordinate it. This is going to happen, but I love when the threads come together like that to start those branches of family tree words and languages, and then a tongue split in the telling. How many generations of American teens have adored or been inflicted with the grapes of wrath, as kind of that's their only experience, their only exposure to field workers. And in Steinbeck, that was the white folks from Oklahoma and their struggles to survive. Oh God, legit, yes, but also not the only people struggling to survive, and they're not the only field workers, not the only field workers who were there before. Even though Steinbeck spent his teens working in the Spreckles fields and factories before he kind of escaped into better things. Thank you for remembering and bringing and sharing Jeff's words as well. Jeff Takami, don't let him fade into oblivion any more than anyone else. Keep those we love and cherish corporeal. Keep them with us. Keep their books and their words. And finally, this idea that it's like, okay, so we've had our theme for the evening and our figure, Fermin, for the evening. But remember that we're not just remembering people, but remembering why we remember people, which is so that they can inspire us to be better people, to be memorable people, right? That, let those you remember make you worthy of their memory. Make a world worthy of their memory. So just thank you for doing that for us, Jean and Elbina and Jason. What a gift for this evening. Thank you everyone for being here and for listening and receiving and sharing. For staying a little longer than usual, but wasn't it worth it? Way to start a new year. Please join us next month on Saturday, February 8th, 5:30, right here, to celebrate the poetry of readers who have been part of the series many times over the past decades. Sally Ashton and David Sullivan. They are both wonderful figures in our community, and will bring a wonderful hour of poetry. Again, check us out befriend us on Facebook, check us out on YouTube. Just send me an email if you are otherwise interested. Everything is the Monterey Bay Poetry Consortium. And just as a shameless plug for the kids I work with every day up at the high school, the PG Arts Center just up the street here opened last night a new month-long-ish exhibit that includes really awesome work from our art students. I'm biased, but it's worth it. So check that out if you're local. Again, come back in a month. Have a better start to your year, and thanks to our poets. And be sure again to make charitable donations for the gift of a book.
Yeah.
And take QR code photos.